Stewards, we are God's stewards. For the love of money is the root of all evil. We can only have one master, God or money, mammon. Who do we serve? What do we serve? That is the foundation of today's chapter. Money, things that we can buy, temporal blessings. Yes, that's another thing. We're going to come to the word temporal soon in here in this chapter. In this context, temporal is very different to temporary. I've noticed that many of my people use the word temporary in this context when it's meant to be temporal. In this context, temporal is the opposite of spiritual. It's earthly things, earthly blessings, earthly privileges, cars, houses. She gives examples. So, and whereas temporary means it will pass away. It's a temporary sickness. I will heal in a few days. Temporary means it has a very short time span. Temporal in this situation is a earthly blessing, as an earthly thing, an earthly object, earthly privilege, as opposed to a spiritual one. Joy, laughter, those are not temporal blessings. Cars, shoes, that is. So I wanted to say that so that when someone finds themselves in this context and teaching, they realize that they're saying two totally different things if they use the word temporary instead of temporal. Let's go in. That which lies at the foundation of business integrity and of true success is the recognition of God's ownership. When you wake up and you go to work, you're working to make money for God. The creator of all things, he is the original proprietor. We are his stewards, we are his servants. All that we have is a trust from him to be used according to his direction. God decides, just like he decides our life partner, just like he decides where we go, what we wear, what to eat. He decides what we do with our money, whether we recognize it or not. Even if we say, it's all mine, it's not. We are stewards, supplied from God with talents and facilities, and placed in the world to do a work appointed by him. So if we don't want to recognize it, it doesn't matter to God. When Judgment Day comes, he will say, you knew you were a steward. You decided not to be a steward. You were unfaithful. Here's your reward. Money is not ours. Houses and grounds, pictures and furniture, garments and luxuries do not belong to us. We are pilgrims. We are strangers. We are like refugees. Our temporal blessings are given us in trust to prove whether we can be entrusted with eternal riches. If we're not faithful with those things, the car, the money, the house, then God is not going to give us any kind of eternal blessing. We will have proven to be an unfaithful steward away from me. If our own people would only put into the cause of God the money that has been lent to them in trust, that portion which they spend in selfish gratification, in idolatry, they would lay up treasure in heaven and would be doing the very work God requires them to do. Selfish gratification, idolatry. God does not say don't buy yourself food. God does not say if you need a pair of shoes, do not buy yourself a pair of shoes. You must give all of that to me. You could, but he doesn't want that. He wants to make sure that every choice you make is based on necessity and is also based on, there's a word I'm trying to think of, temperance, a moderate amount of money. You don't need a supercar if you can get to A, B, C, and D with a normal car. Things like that. That's selfish gratification. Idolatry of cars and worshipping different kinds of expensive cars, and we buy that when we can afford, or well, we obviously can afford a cheaper one that will do the work just as well. It's things like that that we really have to ask ourselves, do I need this? What is this for? Is it just to make me feel good? Or is it going to help my family? It obviously helps me with transportation. But what is the other option? What are the other options? Are there cheaper options of good quality also? We have studied, don't buy something that will fall apart and then you have to keep buying and keep buying. But at the same time, don't buy it because it's just a luxury car. Why do you want it? That's a question we have to ask ourselves. Why do we want this? What are we going to do with this? So God decides and sees, how will I bless you? What spiritual characteristics will I help you with? And He will decide based on how we use our money. One thing I've seen many people do is this race to get richer. They're already wealthy, but they want more. They want more. That covetousness that will come along further down as we read or as we discuss, they want more. So many people are duped. They give all their millions or their 100,000s to an investment friend of theirs who's into investing. They will have a whatever return, and that person disappears with all their money and they have zero. I know, and I've mentioned it before, the man who took their bonus and he gave it to someone who was proven to be very bad with money, extremely bad. His wife begged him, do not give our money. This is our money. It's a family money, to someone who has proven to be bad at business. And they were going to try and make money fast, get rich fast. Instead, what happened? They didn't get rich, and he never saw that money again. If he had given that money to the poor, if he had saved it for a deposit for a house out the city, God would have blessed him with more wisdom. But because he made that foolish decision, wanting to be rich when he already had enough, it, God stripped him. And in fact, he has stripped him of spiritual blessings too. That guy has deteriorated. He has backslidden terribly. It is so true. If you don't use the little that you've been given, God will take it all away. So, God wants us to figure out what we're going to do with the money He has given us. But, like the rich man in the parable, these people, our own people, live sumptuously. That means it's a life of excess, luxury, finery that is not needed, extra cakes and puddings and pies, that when they could use that money to give to God's cause. The money God has lent them in trust to be used to His name's glory, they spend extravagantly. They do not stop to consider their accountability to God. Friends, there is a whole world out there of influencers who travel, and it's like they just go around going, here, this is where I am now, this is what I'm eating, and I bought $200 worth of McDonald's and I ate it alone. What kind of madness is that? Why would you be proud of eating so much money worth of junk on your own when the people are starving? When there's a church that needs to be built somewhere out there in Tanzania, missionaries that need support somewhere in Mabopan. Friends, we have to think very deeply about why we are buying the things we are buying. They do not stop to consider that there is to be a reckoning day, not far hence, when they must give an account of their stewardship. And God, who knows your heart, He will know why you bought what you did. Your excuses, your reasons, He will not abide them. We should ever remember that in the judgment we must meet the record of the way we use God's money. Much is spent in self-pleasing, self-gratification that does us no real good, but positive injury. If we realize that God is the giver of all good things, that the money is His, then we shall exercise wisdom in its expenditure, conforming to His holy will. The world, its customs, traveling around just to travel, its fashions, high-end, immodest, expensive clothes, they will not be our standard. I was shown that the recording angel makes a faithful record of every offering dedicated to God and put into the treasury, and also of the final result of the means thus bestowed. The eye of God takes cognizance of every farthing devoted to his cause and of the willingness or reluctance of the giver. The motive in giving is also chronicled. This is important. I know people who are hard-hearted, unwilling to be transformed by God, but they give. They give a lot of money to the poor. They give their tithe, they return tithe. But obviously it's not to help God's people. Because if you want to help and love God's people, you love the God who created them, and you want to then worship and obey him. Many times we just think, wow, he gave to charity and he's a good man because he gave to charity. Only when the reckoning day comes will we be told the motive was not from a good heart. He didn't give because he loved, he gave so that he could be admired. Every week, the demands of God upon each family are brought to mind by each of its members fully carrying out the plan. And as they have denied themselves some superfluity in order to have means to put into the treasury, lessons of value in self-denial for the glory of God have been impressed upon the heart. The more you don't take what you want, the more you only supply your needs, the greater and deeper the lesson that you are learning from God. And we need deep, deep lessons because our heart is desperately wicked. So the deeper it is, the stronger the foundation, the more it is implanted in us, and it will not be moved. Once a week, each is brought face to face with the doings of the past week, the income that he might have had if he had been economical, and the means that he does not have because of indulgence. His conscience is reined up, as it were, before God, and either commends or accuses him. He learns that if he retains peace of mind and the favor of God, he must eat and drink and dress to his glory. So everything we spend on clothing, on food, on drink, it needs to be on what will prove that we are God's stewards, what will be to his glory, not to the flaunting of our bodies, because that's not God's glory. Character, modesty, purity, that's God's glory. And if we are still able, or if we have allowed God to still whisper to us, if we still have a conscience, when we look at the week, we will either be commended or we will be accused. If we have been accused, then the following week we will do better. God's requirements come first. We are not doing his will if we consecrate to him what is left of our income after all our imaginary wants have been supplied. This is another thing, again, it's the same point I made before. Imaginary wants versus needs. Things that you don't need. Those are imaginary wants. Before any part of our earnings is consumed, we should take out and present to him that portion which he claims. He has his portion, the rest you can use for your needs and the needs of others. If we have prosperity in our secular business, it is because God blesses us. Therefore, because God has blessed us, a part of this income is to be devoted to the poor and a large portion to be applied to the cause of God. This reminds me of a person, everyone was talking, they always talked about how rich he is. I didn't really know him, he didn't really come to our church often, but they're all like, oh, he's rich, look at his car, he's rich. And it wasn't like, oh, I hate him, but it was like, wow, he's so rich. Just like, wow, imagine if we could be that rich, that kind of thing. And then we left, it was during university times, was a bit older than us. Then one day, much later, he invited us and another couple who we didn't know to go to his house. He'd bought a house in an area which is expensive, super expensive. and beautiful place. The house was beautiful. It was lovely. It had 3 stories, lovely kitchen for lovely cooking. Oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. But the most important part to me was their basement. How many people do you know in South Africa who have basements and cellars? This is a black person, not South African. We went down into the basement and cellar, and what was in there? DVDs and books and lots of equipment material, lots of material about God that they would then distribute for evangelism purposes. And that to me meant the world. So they had called us because we seemed like we were serious about our religion, and they wanted us to pray and bless the home. It was a new home, and yeah, that was impressive to me. Using your riches to enrich God's field, that is what money is about. And they were blessed in their secular business, and they used their money to fund a lot of work for God. When that which God claims is rendered to him, the remainder will be sanctified and blessed to our own use. But when a man robs God by withholding that which he requires, his curse rests upon the whole. All of that money will be cursed. Give God his portion, to his cause, his work, God's work. You decide what God's work is. With God, of course, there's tithe. There's a lot of other work that is going on that tithe does not cover. So be prayerful. God's work and the poor, and then the rest God will bless. In carrying forward the work he gave to our hands, it will be necessary for us to give every jot and tittle of our means that we can spare. We won't have much savings. We won't have savings. I don't know that much savings is the right phrase grammatically. We won't have a lot of savings because we will give as much as we can spare. Poverty and distress in families will come to our knowledge, and afflicted and suffering ones will have to be relieved. They will have to be relieved. We will have to do the relieving. I'm thankful I asked for a family that is desperately suffering. And I knew that just 10 Rand would make a difference. Just 10 Rand. From 2 people, it would make a big difference. But no one gave except for one lady who is definitely in want herself. And she gave to this family. Of course, we were also giving, but it means a lot. I pray and I know God has blessed that portion and added to it from after that day. He has added to that portion. So God will bless the leftover portion. Please give. We know very little of the human suffering that exists everywhere about us, but as we have opportunity, we should be ready to render immediate assistance to those who are under a severe pressure. Not all poverty needs help, but desperate poverty of the worthy poor, we need to be able to say, oh, I've got 10 Rand that I was going to, I don't know, buy a weave. Okay, I know weaves are not 10 Rand. Buy whatever, and let me give that. Let me give that. Let me search in my wallet. Could there not be just one 50 Rand note that I can give? And that will make God happy. And you'll be helping someone who is desperately in need. The squandering of money in luxuries deprives the poor of the means necessary to supply them with food and clothing. The poor also need to realize that what they need is food and clothing. Food and clothing. That is your need. Food and clothing. Don't come to us with imaginary wants. We are responsible to God for what we do with our money. Giving to you because you have less than us, but you're not going to do good with that money, God will hold us accountable. We have to give only if you are truly desperate. And when we waste money, wasting money in luxuries deprives the poor of the means necessary to supply them with food and clothing. What we do with our money is serious. It is of great import. That which is spent for the gratification of pride in dress, in buildings, in furniture, and in decorations would relieve the distress of many wretched, suffering families. God's stewards are to minister to the needy. Don't give 10 Rand once a month to the charity or some charity and think you've done your work. Don't wait for a GC sponsored, this is a whatever day, and then you go to the orphanage that day and then you've done your work. Every day there's someone who has not eaten. Every day there's someone who's feeling cold because they don't have a warm coat, a warm jacket, a warm jersey. Instead of wasting your time in luxurious clothing, dress, in buying fancy buildings when you can afford it, when you can do perfectly fine in a less fancy building, fancy furniture, expensive furniture, decorations. God doesn't need fancy. He needs love for people and shelter for us. Constant self-denying benevolence is God's remedy for the cankering sins of selfishness and covetousness. Instead of saying, I'm saving my money so I can buy a sports car, I wish you would say, I'm saving my money so I can help put a very deserving young person through university. If they get an education, they can help their family. Let us think bigger, broader than just ourselves. Continual giving starves covetousness to death. If your mind is founded, built on, I must give, you will never be thinking, I must keep. You can't do both. And once my husband was like, man, we're never going to get rich. We're never going to save much because if he gets a raise, I'm like, great, now we can give more to whoever we are giving. As a family, do try your best to say, this is our budget. This is how much we're giving to God's cause. Second, this is how much we're giving to someone, and then the rest will be for us. And if you don't know someone, find someone, like Job used to do. If riches increase, men, even those professing godliness, set their hearts upon them, and the more they have, the less they give to the treasury of the Lord. Didn't Jesus say it is hard for a rich man to enter heaven? Thus, riches make men selfish, and hoarding feeds covetousness. I want more, more, more. Didn't someone say, was it Beyonce, lost 60,000 or 60 million, $60,000 worth of goods that were in storage. She can't even keep them in her house. What is the point? Let us give. We've not lost it. They're eating it. They've eaten it. It's in their stomachs. It has given them nourishment. And these evils, the hoarding, the covetousness, these evils strengthen by active exercise. God knows our danger and has hedged us about with means to prevent our own ruin. He requires the constant exercise of benevolence. That is what will prevent our ruin. That the force of habit in good works may break the force of habit in an opposite direction. Giving is a means to salvation, a means provided by God to save us. We give because we love God, we love His people, we love each other, and we hate suffering. May God help us that our hearts be broken by the things that break His, so that we may be able to see with His eyes, relieve whoever needs relief. Consistently, not once a year, not once a quarter, every day, every week. And may we look at our shopping. Do we need that? Maybe we can make it a smaller thing. Whatever it is, let's do our best God will smile upon us. And boy, do we need his beautiful smile, because this world is dark. We need a glimpse of the Sun of Righteousness shining his rays upon us. God bless you all.